Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 26.2 Beta 2 released a few days ago, and iOS 26.1 released to the public over a week ago at this point. But there's even more to talk about since the iOS 26.2 Beta 2 is out what's new video. We'll talk about the latest Apple news, we'll also talk about some new features, and we'll talk about the overall experience. Not just my experience, but your experience based off the YouTube community poll on the post page, where at the time of this video there's over 17,000 votes and 208 comments. I've gone over all the comments to determine what the experience is like on all the different versions, so be sure to stick around toward the end of the video where I'll read some of your comments as well. Now, earlier in the week, Apple removed the M1 Mac compatibility from the Apple site listing compatibility for Apple Intelligence. Many people were concerned about this. I actually use an M1 Ultra regularly to edit these videos, and they removed them initially, but a day later they added them back. So why that was taken off of here, we don't really know, but many of us were worried that they were removing compatibility and not pushing forward with them in the future. So I'm glad to see it's back, and it seems like it was just a mistake. So hopefully it stays that way and we'll have compatibility well into the future. This week, Apple announced Apple's digital ID for Apple Wallet in the United States for US passports. If we go into the wallet, once you press the plus button at the top, you can go to driver's license and ID cards, and you'll see United States with digital ID. You can add your passport here. Many people seemed concerned about this, as I made a separate video going over all the features and how this works, and you can currently use it at the TSA checkpoints for domestic travel within the United States. It's basically just a digital version instead of having to carry your regular passport with you. Since we don't really need a passport to travel within the US, you can use a license. This is just an alternative, so you can carry less if you choose to, but you don't have to use it. But let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Currently, I haven't set it up, but let me know if you've set it up and how it's going for you. Many this week expected Apple to announce a new HomePod Mini. Inventory is low or out in many stores, including places such as Best Buy or B&H Photo, so it looks like maybe it's discontinued, maybe they're just low on stock, we don't really know. However, so far there's been no announcement. So also many have also expected the Apple TV, maybe an updated version, but still there's been nothing. We could see something this coming week, but it seems unlikely. But it is a bit odd that Apple would let stock run out on a product they would sell the most of during the holiday season, so maybe we'll see something this week, but if we don't this week, I wouldn't expect anything at this point. iPhone 17 models are booming, it seems, and in China they saw a 22% boost in sales according to Counterpoint Research. So it looks like other than maybe the iPhone Air, the iPhone 17 models, including the base, the 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max, are all doing very well. I know I see many people using the new 17 Pro phones or Pro Max phones. However, I do know quite a few that bought the iPhone Air as well. So let me know if you've upgraded, if you see them around, or which ones you see the most of, and if you think they're actually doing much better than expected, despite the overall sort of controversial design. Jeff Williams, who was thought to be one of the main contenders as a successor of Tim Cook, is now officially retired from Apple. He actually oversaw quite a few things, and last July, Apple announced his retirement. Jeff Williams worked as the chief operating officer at Apple for 20 years or more, and was also in charge of customer service and support, the design team, Apple Health, and software and hardware engineering for Apple Watch. His responsibilities are actually now being split up among many others. So if you go to Apple's page about leadership, you'll see that he's no longer listed here. So you'll see Tim Cook and many of the others, but they've split up his responsibilities, with health and fitness going to Eddie Q. Also, WatchOS is moving to Craig Federighi, and John Turnus is taking over the Apple Watch hardware. Now, it's long been rumored that John Turnus could actually take over for Tim Cook. We don't really know what will happen there, but it looks like we could see some bigger changes in the near future, with Apple changing things around. Apple this week released something I think many of us weren't expecting. They released the iPhone Pocket. So if we go to their website, you'll see it says on the newsroom that introducing iPhone Pocket, a beautiful way to wear and carry iPhone. Born out of a collaboration between Issey Miyake and Apple, iPhone Pocket features a singular 3D knitted construction designed to fit any iPhone. So you can see more information here with all of the different colors available, and there's 2 different sizes. It's sold out very fast, seems to be very limited, and it's only in limited stores. So it's $149.95, and the long version is $229.95 in the US. So quite expensive, and you can see it's only in a handful of stores around the world, from New York City to Taipei to Hong Kong, Tokyo, Shanghai, and a few other places as well. But let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Definitely not something I thought we'd see from Apple, but we had the iPod sock before, but that was a little more affordable at this point. So again, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. When it comes to new features this week, well, Emergency SOS via satellite is now available in Mexico as of this past Tuesday on iOS 18.4 or later on iPhone 14 or newer. It's also available on Apple Watch Ultra 3 with watchOS 26.0.1 or later. Apple actually posted about this, you can see here, so you can now use Emergency SOS via satellite if maybe you need it and you have low or no connectivity. So you'll be able to message, get some help if you're in a remote area. Another feature that's now available for everyone is within Apple Maps within Kansas City. It now has look-around support and more detailed city updates. So if we zoom in here, you should see additional detail. It may take a moment to load, and you can see that about the different buildings and things around. So you should see landmarks, you'll see different things throughout the city, and then again, you should be able to use look-around. So if we go up here, maybe press and hold, we can go into look-around and use that in Kansas City now. So you now have that option if you'd like to check it out. Within iOS 26.2 Beta 2, we have some updates again with Liquid Glass. If we go to the notification center here, you'll see that the X or Clear All is now in Liquid Glass. So where it wasn't before, you'll see it says Clear and it's in Liquid Glass. So that's also included with Show More and the other options on the notification center. Also, some people are seeing Liquid Glass when they enable silent mode. Now, I'm not seeing this on my phone, but others are seeing it on theirs. So let me know if you're seeing it. For whatever reason, it's not showing for me here. If we go into a different focus mode, and if maybe you have custom wallpapers set for both the lock screen and home screen when you have maybe a different mode enabled, such as sleep, now if we go in and edit the pages, there's a new option button. So we'll go to edit the page, edit, and you'll see there's an option button where sleep is at the top. If we go to options, it brings us right into our options for that focus. So that's only there. Again, if you go into sleep, for example, scroll down. If you have these customized screens selected and you select wallpaper for that, that will then show. If I remove them, it goes away and is no longer an option. So again, if I go to edit pages, you don't have the option and it's back to what it was before. When it comes to app updates, if we go over to the Apple Store, you'll see that it has a new icon. Apple updated it this week with an all-new icon and a liquid glass design. So if we go to customize our home screen and change the icon to light mode, you can see what it looks like there. We also have clear, of course, but I like the dark mode icon best, I think. If we go into it, you'll see here it says your bag's empty, but we have that same menu that we have in all of the new iOS 26 updates with liquid glass where you can just slide back and forth. And if we go into the App Store app, you'll see that Apple updated Apple Invites. 3 days ago or so, they updated it where it says hosts can now allow guests to specify the number of adults and kids they're bringing. This update contains bug fixes and performance improvements. So they've updated that. If you use invites, it's available now. When it comes to iPhone, it seems the iPhone 16e is a failure similar to what we're hearing about the iPhone Air. Fixed Focus Digital on Weibo has said that Apple's attempt at selling a low-cost iPhone is not going as planned. So that doesn't really surprise me very much as it's not super cheap and you have some used options that are actually better. Other than having Apple's own modem in it and a few other advantages, there's not really an advantage and you're better off buying a used phone typically. However, the iPhone 17, iPhone 17 Pro, and iPhone 17 Pro Max are doing very well. I would love to see maybe Apple refine their overall offerings, refine them down to what we had with the iPhone 6 and 7 days, where there were just two options and everyone gets the best of everything each year. So you could have a smaller phone and a plus size phone, and that would be it. We'd all get the same options, we'd get the same great processor, and it would really help Apple focus on the great experience, maybe help with software since there's less things to write for. That's just my take on it, as those were some of the best days of Apple, and I would love to see them return to incredibly stable software and a really focused experience. But let me know what you think of that in the comments below. When it comes to other Apple releases, Apple released Safari Technology Preview 232. It's now available for macOS Tahoe and macOS Sequoia. So if you want to test the latest features, it's available there. And also a couple other things to note. Apple stopped signing iOS 26.0.1, meaning you can no longer downgrade to that or iPadOS 26.0.1, and that leaves basically only iOS 26.1. We could see an iOS 26.1.1, but we are seeing Apple really rapidly work on iOS 26.2, so we just don't know if they're going to release that. But last year, they did release an update to iOS 18.1 with 18.1.1. Now, as far as iOS 26.2 Beta 3, well, based on Apple's releases so far, I would expect it sometime next week. Now, we don't know if it will be in the beginning of the week, Monday or Tuesday, or later in the week like they did this week. Also, when it comes to the public release, I would expect it sometime around the second week of December. It's possible it could be a little bit earlier than that, but it does need to release before the 19th to be in compliance with Japan's new rules about having third-party app stores and different choices when you sign into the browser for the first time for your search engine. So those are things that they need to comply with, so I would expect it before that date. Also, after that, we should see iOS 26.3 Beta 1, probably the last update or beta before the end of the year, and typically they resume after a vacation during the holidays, usually in the second or third week of January. So probably around the 5th or 6th, maybe we'll see Beta 2 of 26.3, or maybe we won't. We don't really know. Apple could change it up this year, but it seems like they released iOS 26.2 Beta 2 this week to get more in line with what they did with release schedules last year. Also, Apple released a new AirPods firmware update this week for AirPods Pro 2, AirPods Pro 3, and AirPods 4. If we go into settings here, go to our AirPods, scroll to the bottom, you can see the build number here of 8B25, and that's the same for the case. However, that's only for AirPods Pro 3. AirPods Pro 2 and AirPods 4 have a build of 8B21. Why there's different build numbers, we don't really know though. However, it did seem like it fixed some issues. So as far as the overall AirPods Pro 3 experience, it fixed an issue for me where only one connects at a time. Oftentimes you would place both in your ears and only one side would connect for a while, especially if you were connecting to a Mac or Apple Vision Pro or even your iPhone. Sometimes that would happen. You'd have to place them back in, close it, reopen it, and that would fix the issue. So it looks like it's resolved that issue, and you can see how fast it's connecting as well. But I have more details in my video that I made about it as well. When it comes to the iOS 18.7.2 experience, so far 100% of the comments say it's great still. No real complaints about that version. Anyone that's updated from iOS 18.7.1 or earlier has been pretty happy with it. It's got stability, better battery life, and is just generally great with security updates. When it comes to the iOS 26.1 experience, it's generally good, but there's still some issues with it. It's generally stable with no crashes. It has better battery life for most than iOS 26.0.1, and also users of older phones such as the iPhone 11 and iPhone 12 devices seem to have less issues. However, the most common complaint is stuttering and lag, so that's great that it's still stable, but there's definitely issues when swiping maybe to the widget screen. There's some frame rate drops there, ProMotion is a little slow for some, and also there's that control center lag and ghosting, so when you do this, sometimes it lags, swipe up, go home, the icons stay there for a second and blink off the display. So that's something we've been seeing. We also see RAM management issues. So sometimes apps will just randomly reboot every time you go into them, even though you haven't opened many other apps. And also there's CarPlay connectivity issues. Now, mostly I'm seeing them from GM cars and Honda cars, but that's usually what I'm hearing. I haven't had any issues myself, but quite a few people seem to have this issue. Also, those specifically on the iPhone 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max and iPhone 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max report that there's overheating issues or heat issues in general. So if you have one of those, it seems like it's getting very hot for some for no reason. So I haven't experienced that on newer versions, but many people have. The same is true on the iPhone Air. It wasn't really that hot for me, so I've shown that in previous videos as well. When it comes to the iOS 26.2 Beta 2 experience, well, as I mentioned in previous videos, I switched from the iPhone Air to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and I've been using it for a couple days now. So overall, it's pretty good. I really have no complaints myself. It's much smoother as far as performance. Swiping to the widget screen is smooth. The control center ghosting is gone. It sort of fades out. It doesn't just blink off the display. Things in general seem smooth, really no issues. So I'm pretty happy with it, and it's generally more stable. In fact, most people are very positive about iOS 26.2 Beta 2. It seems to have fixed heating issues for people, but there are some bugs. The odd bug that's still here for most people is Resprings when you're customizing. So you could go in here, go to Edit, and maybe customize. Some people are seeing a respring, so it reboots, shows you the Apple logo, and then quickly gets back to the home screen. Also, notifications, when you clear those, people are seeing that. And other people have said maybe you go into the Home app and maybe you're home, you tap the three-dot menu, and it crashes for them. So not everyone is having the same experience. I haven't seen that. And even on this one, if we go over to the apps library here, you'll see it's instant. On my other device, it wasn't, and they're set up exactly the same. In fact, it was restored from those. So I'm not sure why this one is instant. My app library lags on my other device, though. However, some people are having issues with CarPlay. This time around on iOS 26.2 Beta 2, it's an odd issue where it's pixelated. So if we go into Apple's forums here, you'll see pixelated Apple CarPlay screen on iPhone 17 Pro Max with a Mercedes. It seems like it's common across Mercedes vehicles, but I'll link this in the description if you want to check it out. It seems like it's fairly common for just the display to be pixelated with this version. Overall performance seems pretty good with iOS 26.2 Beta 2. This is an iPhone 16 Pro Max running Beta 1, and Beta 2 seems to be smoother like I mentioned. So overall, the experience is great. ProMotion definitely seems nice and fast here, just ramping up and down as you're scrolling. If I go back out, maybe go into music, swipe to a new song, swipe back, then maybe go back over into camera. Things seem generally fast, not perfect. Sometimes there's stutters here and there, but much better than before. When it comes to overall heat and thermals, well, like I mentioned, this is staying nice and cool, but let's go ahead and run benchmarks. I have not run them today on this phone, so they could be low. Sometimes it takes a couple runs to see higher scores, but let's go ahead and take a look, and then we'll take a look at the overall thermals and see what kind of temperatures we get. We'll run it on 26.1 as well on the iPhone Air. On the iPhone 17 Pro Max, we're about 35 degrees Celsius in the hottest point on iOS 26.2 Beta 2, and on iOS 26.1 on the iPhone Air, we're around 38 degrees Celsius. So not as hot as we saw before. We were around 40 degrees Celsius last time. Benchmarks completed, and on the iPhone Air with 26.1, we have 3,705 for single-core, 9,549 for multi-core. On the iPhone 17 Pro Max with iOS 26.2 Beta 2, we have 3,778 for single-core, 9,674 for multi-core. Now, if I waited a moment, ran this again, we could see much higher scores as we have before with over 10,000. So again, this was on 26.1, but again, I've only been using this for a day or so, but many people are seeing over 10,000 no problem with most of the 17 Pro phones. If you're wondering if you should install iOS 26.2 betas, well, at this point, I would say probably not if you're on iOS 26.1. While they do seem to be a little bit more stable in many areas, there's still some bugs in other areas. So I would hold out, as I would expect updates very soon. And typically when people ask me if they should install it, I tell them to wait until the RC version is out, or the release candidate. So once iOS 26.2 RC is out, then you can typically install it and maybe get an update when it releases to the public. As far as overall battery life, well, on iOS 18.7.2, no people have reported any issues with it whatsoever, so still great battery life overall for them. On iOS 26.1, I was using it full time on the iPhone Air, so I can share that here. So if we go back over, we'll go into battery, and then we go to battery health first, and you'll see I'm at 100% capacity with 52 cycles. While I did find that iOS 26.1 did get me much greater battery life overall, if we go into battery usage, you'll see the other day I charged it over 2 times. I was backing things up. It was using a ton of power and battery, but throughout the different weeks, I had 5 hours and 9 minutes of screen active time with 94% usage and 5 hours and 32 minutes of screen idle time. And thanks to Abhishek for sending in his battery life. This is on iOS 26.1 on an iPhone 16e with it set to 80% battery charge limit. So you'll see 84% usage with 6 hours and 12 minutes of screen on time, 1 hour and 27 minutes of screen off time. That's pretty great overall, especially for a 16e. When it comes to iOS 26.2 Beta 2, well, I've been using it for about a day and a half on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. And if we take a look here, like I said, I recently switched over to this device. I'm at 100% capacity with 9 cycles currently. If we take a look at the overall battery usage, well, let's take a look at yesterday. Like I said, half a day, just 1 hour and 18 minutes, so it was still updating in the background. But today, 2 hours and 40 minutes of screen active time, 4 hours and 15 minutes of screen idle time, and I used 45%. Now, again, it says you're using more battery today than you usually do, and that's because I was using it a bit more, and it was updating in the background. So overall, it does feel like this is getting me way more battery by this time throughout the day than the iPhone Air was, though. Now, when it comes to the overall experience, let's take a look at some of your comments. Zsoltfeki, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that properly, said iPhone 14 Pro Max 512 gigabytes, iOS 26.1 doubled the battery life since iOS 26.0.1, almost 2 days battery life. So basically it went back to the battery time of the iOS it came with originally years before. Lekwai Faniai 2143 said, running 26.1 on my 15 Pro, battery is okay, not the best, but still okay. I just want the overall experience to feel smoother. There's still lag when swiping from the widget screen to the home screen. It's really annoying. Micro stutters here and there, but nothing too crazy. ProMotion needs to feel more snappy. Besides these, everything is okay. Ranma Satomi S said, using iOS 26.2 Beta 2 on an iPhone 17 Pro Max. No issues so far. All apps appear to be working. Battery on the last betas has appeared to be fairly well. Even on the iPad with iPadOS 26.2 betas, they don't seem to be going through as many cycles as quickly as other versions. TTS292 said, iOS 26.2 Beta 2 is smooth as butter on my iPhone 11. I haven't had any issues whatsoever, and I'm happy to report that battery life is good, Wi-Fi connectivity is great, and overall performance is smooth. Ever since I updated to 26.1 when it was released to the public, it has always been smooth, so I guess it carried over to 26.2 Beta 2. Overall, I like the update so far, and I'm looking forward to see what Apple has in store next. Zendino said, 26.1, 17 Pro, all good except CarPlay in my Chevy Equinox, sometimes restarting 3 times in 5 minutes, sometimes just once, usually the first 20 minutes of being in the vehicle. Hope this gets resolved. Scorpio Dragon J88 said, absolutely no issues on my iPhone 15 Pro Max for 26.1. Glad that I waited till 0.1 to update to iOS 26. Been a great experience so far. Battery life is more or less the same as iOS 18 before I updated, so no complaints so far. Elizabeth Kierville 8289 said, 26.1 on my iPhone 11 is great now. There was a problem with calendar when I was scrolling, shuddering a bit. That has smoothed itself out now, so no complaints. Battery lasting good too. When it comes to overall storage, let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we'll go to General and then iPhone Storage. And 26.1's on the left, 26.2 Beta 2 on the right, set up identical in every way. And you'll see here that iOS 26.2 Beta 2 is taking up 23.02 gigabytes compared to 20.28 gigabytes. So it seems like it's a little bit bigger for me on the 17 Pro Max, where Apple Intelligence is now taking up 9.07 gigabytes instead of 6.62 gigabytes. So whatever the difference is there, I'm not sure, but either way, it is taking up a little bit more. That could change, of course, in the future. Now, iOS 18.7.2 is still the benchmark of stability. iOS 18.7.2 remains the gold standard for just about every comment I see about it. It offers a reliable, smooth experience with solid battery life, often referenced as the version many wish they had never left. When it comes to iOS 26.1, it's still got the unbearable stutter. While generally considered stable, iOS 26.1 has a wide variety of experiences, with some saying it's great, but others saying iOS 26.1 suffers from widespread complaints of stutter, lag, and heating issues, despite it offering better battery and more stability. Now, iOS 26.2 Beta 2 is the essential fix. iOS 26.2 Beta 2 seems to correct most of the lag and stuttering from iOS 26.1 to the point where many say it's smooth as butter. It's seen as a major improvement so far and also improves battery, but still has some bugs to iron out with random crashes here and there. However, we're only in Beta 2, so it's looking good as far as a good step in the right direction. Sadly, again, there's still no way to go back to iOS 18 for those that would like to do that. So that's everything with iOS 26.2 Beta 2, iOS 26.1, and iOS 18.7.2. Let me know your experience in the comments below, and of course I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.